This is session number 2 of the Sales Mastermind podcast. Today in the hot seat is Craig Bertram. Hit the music. Hello and welcome to the Sales Mastermind podcast. Get ready to harness the power of the Mastermind community and take your sales to the next level. I'm your host, Jonathan Stewart. Today's question comes from Craig Bertram on Instagram. He asked, if I'm selling in, say, a store or just a public place, how can I approach people without being too overwhelming? What is a good opening? Or is it better to just sit and wait for them to come to you if they are interested? Craig, this is actually a really, really good question. It's one of the most common questions that I get when people are especially new to sales. And it's a question I know that I can add some value to help you, but not only you, but also the other listeners of the podcast as well. Just a quick background on me. I did do a lot of retail sales early on in my career and a lot of approaching people and struggling with this a lot myself in the beginning of not wanting to be too overwhelming, approaching them in an effective way. So it's a good thing. It's something I think about, and I'm glad you're this way. I don't want to be that pushy, annoying salesperson that turns people off. Obviously, if you want to be effective, that's not going to work. But at the same time, you can't just sit back and be passive. This is not going to get you anywhere in sales. You have to make sure you have that fine balance of approaching people, being assertive, being confident, but also not being pushy, not being overwhelming. And so I want to approach these questions and really add some value here for you. So the first thing I want to answer is, how can I approach people without being too overwhelming? And also within this, I'll answer, what is a good opening? So I'll give two situations here. The first would be more in a retail environment, let's say a retail store. And the first thing that you want to look at is you kind of want to pay attention to the customer's body language. This will be kind of obvious. One of the big things to look for is where are they paying attention? Where are they looking? Or are they kind of looking your direction? Are they kind of looking at, maybe they look lost, or they look like they're looking for the restroom, or they look like they're looking for another department? A good way to just find out is to ask them. Sounds simple, but you could just simply ask them, what brings you into the store today? What brings you here today? Especially if they're kind of looking your direction or looking towards your department or the product that you're selling. You want to approach them with what brings you into the store today. People naturally will answer a normal question, and so they'll usually give you an answer, and you can find out quickly what they're there for and proceed from there. The one thing that I say never do, and this is kind of the cardinal sin of retail sales, never ask, can I help you, or do you need help? You'll always get a no. This is the quickest way to not get anywhere in sales in a retail store situation. Never ask, can I help you, or do you need help? Ask more open-ended question, what brings you into the store today? Or something I used when I was in sales at Sears is I like to, if there was a special promotion going on, ask them, hey, have you seen the specials? That's kind of a closed question, but it did get people to go, no, what is the sell? And it at least gave me a kind of an opening to talk about what the special was, especially if it was a big sale, like 10 or 15, 20% off everything, or 0% interest for 50 years or whatever, some kind of promotion they're running. That's a little bit of exaggeration, but you get my point. So make sure that you watch the customer's body language, where their gaze is going, and then you want to make sure that you ask them a simple question, but a question that gets the best answer. And so that's the way I would approach it first of all. So this is just a basic. Of course, we could go into hours about other ways to approach people, but that's the basic on it. The other situation, so we talked about a retail store situation. The other situation I want to mention is more of a public place. I would think of this more as a street vendor kind of situation, or if you were at let's say an open air market. Let's say that you were kind of going more just out on the streets and trying to sell a product, more of an open public place. You'll have to be a lot more direct than you would in a retail environment. One of the reasons here is kind of obvious. When people go into a retail store, they're going there to buy something, right? You think about that. That makes a lot of sense. When somebody goes out to just a regular outdoor place, if it's a sales place like a flea market or an open air market, of course they're there to buy, so it's kind of like a retail. But in a situation where maybe you're on a college campus, maybe you're at the airport, maybe you're at a particular event and you have a sales table set up. You want to make sure that you're a little bit more direct. If you wait for people to come to you, you're not going to do very well. You want to make sure in this situation that you approach them, but you approach them with a nice, genuine smile. One effective way, if you have a physical product, and I found this to be very effective with a physical product, is you actually say, have you seen this in action before? Have you touched this? Have you played with this before? Something like that. And you want to get this product into your customers' hands. You want them to touch it, you want them to feel it, and you want them to get some interaction to it. It actually is a little bit of a psychological effect of ownership when somebody gets a physical product in their hands. And people, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I've heard this philosophy, and I believe it to be very true. People are more afraid to lose something than they are excited to get something. So once you get it in their hands, they can feel it, they can touch it. If they like it, they don't want to let go of it, and that can kind of get them to buy that product. So you got to make sure you're direct. You got to make sure that you approach with good energy, genuine smile, a nice, soft, easy opening, and then try to get the product in your hand if it's a physical product. So that answers the how do I approach people and what is a good opening. The second part of your question was, is it better to just sit and wait for them to come to you if they are interested? You cannot be passive in sales. I love this quote, and I'm not sure who actually originally said it, but I heard it said that the timid salesman has skinny kids. You know, it's kind of a joke, kind of funny, but true. If you're timid in sales, you won't make a lot of commission and you won't do very well. You can't be timid, but at the same time, you can't be overwhelming, to use your words. You can't be pushy and you can't be annoying. It's something that you have to have and find that fine balance. The way to find this, though, is by experience. The only way to find this would be by experience. You got to make sure that you experience this. Now, this is really interesting. So when I worked at Sears, specifically in the appliances, there was a huge difference between the top performers there and the bottom performers. And one interesting thing was it was myself and two other guys that were always competing for the top spot there at the particular store. I was lucky to work with two of the top people in the entire Sears company in the appliance department. And they were two of the people that really taught me a lot of things just by paying attention to them and how they sold. But we were always kind of going back and forth. But what was interesting is we were the ones that were out on the front approaching people. We were the ones that were out not being passive, not being annoying, but not being passive. And there was a fine balance there. But you notice the people that didn't do very well, they were kind of on the sidelines. They were chatting. They were kind of hanging out. They were maybe doing something and waiting for the customer to come to them. Now, obviously, their sales showed this. They didn't have a lot of sales, whereas the three of us that were out getting people and approaching people and working the sales floor in a sense, we were the ones that had the largest amount of sales. It's a numbers thing as well. Like if you approach more people, you're going to get more sales. And it's just a simple numbers game many times. But of course, once you get the numbers, then you want to be effective with those numbers, which is what we've kind of been talking about. But it was just amazing. I want to point out that fact there, kind of the difference between the different salespeople. Before I leave you, I want to leave you with 5 quick tips just to kind of get you on your way and to provide some value. But the first thing, just some quick tips on approaching people. The first thing you want to make sure is to be natural. So people are turned off by salesiness, feeling like they're being sold. They don't like you to come up and be a commercial in front of them. You want to be natural. Think about this. If a friend approached you and you had some kind of memorized speech, it wouldn't be very effective. But instead, if they approach you naturally and kind of give their opinion and they're enthusiastic about something, you'll listen. And in the same way, sales, you need to be natural. You need to make sure that you're friendly and not pushy. The second thing is, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but make sure you're smiling. It's easy to go with the flow and not look happy, to not smile. And that's going to go a long way, whether it be retail sales, whether it be outside sales, whether this be in a outside area, just whatever you're doing, people are drawn to people who are smiling. And so that's important. Another thing, and this was one of the reasons Napoleon Hill said that salesmen often are not successful. And he said because they lack enthusiasm in their sales presentation. And this is an important thing to remember. If you're not excited about your product, then why should the customer? And so you need to make sure that you have a product, number one, that you can be enthusiastic about. If you can't be enthusiastic about it, maybe you should find a new product. But secondly, Make sure you transfer this. Make sure, you show that excitement to your customers, and that excitement will be contagious, and that alone will get you some sales. Mary Kay Ash, she found early on in her career when she founded the Mary Kay business that she could sell products solely by enthusiasm, just by being enthusiastic and getting out there excited about a product. And in many ways, you'll get a lot of sales just from enthusiasm. Of course, you need to have backed up enthusiasm with true information, but enthusiasm's huge. The fourth quick tip that I want to leave with you is to be confident. Of course, confidence comes with experience. Confidence comes when you know your product really well. But people do not trust non-confident people. If somebody comes to you and they're trying to sell you a product and you can tell they don't like it themselves or they're not confident in it, you're not going to trust them. People trust confident people. You need to be confident. We're not talking about cocky. We're just talking about confidence. Confidence in your product. When you say something, you say it with conviction because you know it to be true. You know it by personal experience. That's key. And then the last tip, so be natural, make sure you're smiling, be enthusiastic, be confident. The last one, and this really ties this all together, I believe, very well, is practice. Practice. Simple word, can be applied in many areas of life, but the only way to know the proper timing, the only way to know the proper approach, the only way to know what works is to do it. Early on in sales, I was thrown into the retail sales environment. Never having done sales before, I was thrown into a commission retail environment. And you know what? I didn't, at that point, know exactly what I was doing, but you know how I learned? I did it. It was kind of sloppy at first, and of course I read things. I kept my eyes open to sales materials and things, but you know what happened? As I did it, I got better. And as I did it more, I got even better. And if you pay attention, then this practice will help you get better. And so practice, practice, practice. Get out there and do it. Okay, so I want to leave you with this quote, and this is what Maya Angelou said. People will forget what you say and what you do, but they will not forget the way you made them feel. Great quote. So I just, hopefully that was helpful to you guys. I want to remind you that this podcast is connected to the Sales Mastermind community over on Facebook. You can find that by going to salespurpose.com/community. And you can join that Facebook community. This particular podcast episode will be pushed over to that Facebook community. And really the beauty of this podcast is that it's not just me answering questions. I do have some experience, and I believe I have some helpful tips to give you and some helpful answers to give you for your questions. But as I heard before, no person has a monopoly on good ideas. And so I alone am not going to have every single idea to help every single person, but rather when we put this particular question into the Facebook Sales Mastermind community, there is power in the collective intelligence. And what I mean by that is when you get a lot of people all trying to solve a single problem, that problem is more effectively solved. And that's a mastermind principle is what we're drawing on here. So make sure that if you're not a part of the mastermind group, go ahead and go over to salespurpose.com/community and request to join that Facebook group. And then you can get in on the conversation. You can maybe help Craig, give him some more advice, things that you've done that have helped you. But we really look forward to seeing you over there. And then the next thing I just want to point out to you guys is that we appreciate any honest feedback and any honest reviews that you can give on iTunes. Those are much appreciated. And also, if you know of somebody else that could use the information on this podcast, share it with them. And then I also want to mention that if you want your question answered, it's very simple. So there's 3 easy ways to get your question on the show. The first one is if you just go to salespurpose.com/podcast, you'll find there is a plugin by SpeakPipe where you can leave a voicemail question. So I really would love to have it in that format. That's my preferred format, is to have it in a voicemail question. The second way you can leave a question is by going to Facebook, going to Instagram, going to Twitter, and using the social media hashtag AskTheMastermind. So hashtag Ask the Mastermind, all one word, hashtag Ask the Mastermind, and we'll pay attention to those particular hashtags and see if questions are being asked there. And then the third way is I'm going to have a contact box on the podcast page that we talked about a second ago there, salespurpose.com/podcast. And there you'll be able to go ahead and leave just a text question there as well, like to my email inbox. And that will get your question hopefully on the show if it's something that I feel is useful, that we can use to help not only you, but other people as well. And so I'm really excited that you listened. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen. I hope that our questions and answers were very helpful to you. As always, I'm going to add the links and resources mentioned in this podcast at salespurpose.com/session 002 for this episode. And we look forward to seeing you and hearing you and answering your question on the next Sales Mastermind podcast. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Sales Mastermind podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes below for any resources or sites mentioned in the podcast. Also be sure to subscribe and join the Facebook community to continue the conversation. Here's to your success.